Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge and welcome to Eldridge and Company. I'm very glad today to be able to talk about one of the largest, longest problems that the city has had, and it's not only this city, but all cities, with my old and good friend, Quinn, who is now the president and chief operating officer of WIN, which is Women in Need. She recently announced that she wasn't running for mayor this year because she did 4 years ago. I wish she had won, if I can say that. But anyway, she announced also that since she wasn't running, she was going to really try to bring the question of homelessness and to end it to the forefront of the news. And so, hello, Chris, and I didn't mean to talk so long. How are you?
Hi, Ronnie. It's so great to see you and be with you. And, I do want to take the time now that I'm not running and my time at WIN and really be a thorn in the side of all the candidates and whoever the mayor is, because it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace and it can be solved. This isn't some complicated disease that we don't know a solution to.
Right. I was thinking back, reminiscing about the Lindsay days when I was at City Hall. And one of my areas, instead of community boards, then we had task force and I had Greenwich Village. And Greenwich Village had the largest number of SROs, and the community was
Really?
outraged by it. Right. And it was very difficult and very different. And nobody knew what to do. It wasn't nearly the amount now. But we were able to use common sense and cut through a lot of the bureaucracy to really do this. Anyway, it's much worse now. How many people are homeless right now? 60?
It's over 60,000.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
at WIN, we are the largest provider of shelter to families with children,
Right.
and also the largest provider of supportive permanent housing to families with children. And there's 12,000 families in shelter. There's more children in shelter than there are seats in Madison Square Garden, in one of the richest cities in the world. That's just a disgrace. It's not acceptable.
And understanding the trauma and first place to understand the trauma for everybody.
Right.
Many years ago, I was widowed very young and with not much money. But I had such an incredible support system, unbelievable support system. Just think about these poor people who have no support system, who are depressed. They have to be depressed. How can you live through something like this? And we have to understand it from a social consciousness and a kind of justice. I mean, we can't be a society, right?
You're totally right. And at WIN, the model we use is trauma-informed care. And for the 5 years I've been at WIN, we've been trying to get the city to adopt trauma-informed care for all of their workers and for all of their contracts. And they haven't done it yet. And, by the time you get to shelter, a lot has gone wrong. You may have been evicted, domestic violence, sexual abuse, perhaps there's drug problems or mental health problems. You and your children have been traumatized. And particularly with the children, if you don't address that trauma, it just festers and grows and grows. And the greatest indicator of whether or not you're going to be a homeless adult is having been a homeless child.
Yeah, isn't that something? Tell us about WIN first. It used to be called Women in Need. Remember, it started in one brownstone, didn't it? Or one small building.
About 37 years ago or so, Rita Zimmer, our founder, who's still around and doing really good work with formerly incarcerated people, took in, 4 or 8 families into a brownstone basement in the Times Square area. It was in the late 80s when all of this was kind of really percolating. And from that grew WIN. Now, you'd like to say after 37 years we were out of business. That's not the case. We have 11 shelters. Over the next 6 months, we're opening 2 more. We have 5 supportive housing buildings and 200 apartments that we rent for permanent supportive housing. So as the problem has grown, we've grown. But we've also, over the past 5 years, set up a big an advocacy department. And we take the real life experiences we hear from our clients and are putting those into legislative and policy action. We're working right now with Steve Levin, the chair of the General Welfare Committee, to try to change how the voucher, the money the city gives you for apartment rental, to get that raised.
The city gives you about what, 500 and some odd dollars to assistance to pay the rent, and then
So
you
for
go and look for an apartment.
totally, for a family of 4,
Mhm,
it's $1,500.
mhm.
Zillow, the rental online thing, did a study for us. There's not one, there's 0 neighborhoods in the city of New York where $1,500 for a family of 4 is the area median rent. Our bill would take it up to Section 8 levels, which would be about $2,200. That opens up about 20 neighborhoods where that is equal to the area median rent. We have over 40 sponsors. The mayor says he won't sign it, so it's veto proof. So it's funny for me to say this as a former speaker. The speaker has to, it's now on him to move the bill forward.
Mm. Can we just take a minute and do the process?
Yeah.
So you find yourself living with somebody and they want you out,
Right.
sharing somebody else's place, or you don't have a place, right? So what do you have to do?
So you have to go to the Bronx, to the intake center, which is called PATH, which stands for something, but I don't know what it stands for. So you have to go to the intake center. Now, viewers may think, okay, that's nice. They welcome you. They give you a cup of tea. No.
No.
You go to the intake center, you're allowed 2 bags. Your whole life is in 2 bags. You don't have luggage, probably. They're usually hefty bags. You sit with an intake worker who spends most of their time trying to get you to believe you're not homeless. They'll say like, oh, you have an Aunt Ronnie. Let's call Ronnie. Doesn't Ronnie love you? Ronnie, don't you love your niece, Chris? You want her to go into a homeless shelter? That's an awful nice sweater. How did you have the money to buy a sweater? I had a family once I was dealing with, and one of the grown child lived with the grandmother. There was a mother and a father and a younger child. The father was a felon out of jail. The older daughter had gotten a job as a correction officer at Rikers. So they said, well, everybody can live with grandma. No, the felon can't live with the correction officer. So the intake worker says, well, she should just tell her boss her father's a felon. I mean, no, that makes no sense. So the families go through this arduous process. Then if you make it through that, and we've had many families who've gone through intake to PATH 4 times. So you then get sent.
Wait a minute, talk about trauma training. There is none up there, right?
None. We have a piece of legislation that would require trauma-informed training at intake. Right. No, it's trauma-inducing. It's not trauma addressing. Right. So then they send you to, if you're lucky enough to make it through step 1, they send you to a shelter. Then you're with us. You're called a conditional for 10 days to 2 weeks.
How do they decide which shelter to send you to?
Wherever there's a bed. The rule is you're supposed to go to the shelter closest to the school of the youngest child. That does, it's wherever there's a bed, and sometimes there's no bed. And you go to a welfare hotel where there are no services, and there isn't 24-hour security, there aren't security cameras. So, those SRO type things the village didn't want, we're using them basically, for families out there. So for the 2 weeks you're at the facility, they're determining whether or not you're homeless. At the end of 2 weeks, if they decide you're not homeless, and this is horrible, the provider, Quinn, has to go tell you you have to leave. And then you get put out basically on the street by the city. And, the Bloomberg administration was famous for this, but so is the de Blasio administration. I mean, so is the de Blasio administration. The Bloomberg administration put more people out on the street, but the de Blasio administration turns more people away. at path. So it's, just a different
Right.
point in the process. If they get approved, then they stay at the shelter. At Wynn, the average length of stay is 15 months. That is long. And it's not that long necessarily because people need more time with the problems they have, though we do work with the challenges they have. It's really long because it's hard to find an apartment and the vouchers don't work and there's not enough supportive housing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why the length of time has grown 4 months over the past 5 years.
And
now we use that time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go on.
No, we use that time with services. One of the most important things that indicates whether you're going to return to shelter is whether you have a good paying job. So we have a job training program at Wynn. We pay for that privately. It's not a requirement of our contract. So, just to show you what the city is not prioritizing.
Yeah. Is there average number of people being rejected and how many times they're rejected at the central intake?
It's hard. It's been hard for us to get that info.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they stay with you. How do you then decide who's going to go into supportive housing? It's the people who are left over who haven't
to go into supportive housing, you have to be chronically homeless, which means you have to have been homeless 3 times in the past 5 years, which I think is too high a bar, 1. 2, you have to have a comorbidity, to use kind of a medical term. You have to have a drug, depending on how the supportive housing is structured, you have to have a drug problem, or it doesn't have to be active, a mental health issue. A woman who aged out of foster care with a baby, a domestic violence survivor. So if you have both of those things, then you can qualify. It's not easy. It's not, just anybody who's in shelter.
It's something. And then to go into your permanent housing?
So our permanent housing is all supportive. Is all supportive. And so
which is what makes sense, right?
Correct. And, supportive, for people who are listening and don't know, it's permanent, totally permanent, but with services on site. And people have said to me, well, isn't that a lot to have, a psychiatric social worker give out the medicine, or a caseworker, and I've said to people, do you have a cleaning lady? Do you have a therapist? Do you have a trainer? Do you have a dog walker? Well, you live in supportive housing. You just pay for it yourself. So get over yourself.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
And people don't leave supportive. I mean, they don't get evicted from supportive housing. It's a very stable place to live.
It's something, isn't it? I mean, in those days when I was reminiscing, we did provide supportive housing within one of the hotels. It was actually called it wasn't the Broadway Central. Now I can't think of the word, but it was built for indigent men, and it was built around an atrium. And there were 2 layers of rooms, and they went about 8 or 9 feet high, and then it was chicken wire, so there was better ventilation. I had found this wonderful social worker at HRA who nobody was really paying that much attention to.
Right.
And he came and he ran, and then we went to St. Vincent's, and we had on-site social workers and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we knew then that you needed this kind of supportive.
Right.
That's just crazy. Anyway.
I will, the First Lady, Charlene McRae, her Thrive initiative, which I know is controversial. One part of it has been to give money to shelters for us to hire master's level social workers. And that has been really, really great. We actually, before the controversy, met with her to urge her to expand it so we could hire children's social workers, but then it all blew up, but that's been invaluable.
Right. Now, you write that you're sure that the number of homeless people will increase after we get over this pandemic, because the restrictions on evictions are going to be gone, I guess.
Right.
But you also bring a long-term solution to the problem of homelessness, which it seems to elude everybody. I don't think politicians like to think too far ahead. I mean, they're busy right now, looking for
Right.
what they can do right now. So let's
Yeah,
talk
and
about that.
yeah, the eviction moratorium, which is a great thing everybody's done, will end. And then people will need to pay the money back. Now, so you're going to have people who are very low income who did that, right? And you're also going to have people who may be more middle class, who didn't have the money, who
Mhm.
lost their job, who've never been part of the system. So we don't want any of these folks to end up in shelter. So we would propose a stay at home voucher, which would be about 2 years or so. They would use it to pay their back rent and to continue to pay their rent for 2 years or until they got a job where they could pay the rent. Now, folks will say, well, that's a lot of money. It is about $201 a night to be in a shelter. So it's got to be cheaper than that.
So let's talk about, that was a frustration for me. What is the monthly cost of that? So it's 200 and how many dollars? 200?
$201 a night to be in a shelter, but
Right,
it's about $271 to be in a hotel a
yeah,
night where you get no services.
right.
And
And
the voucher we talked about before that
mhm,
we want to raise the amount of, the cost of that per night with the amount raised, $73 a night.
yeah. So it's economically, financially, and everything else sensible. But
Yeah,
what do we do? Yeah, go on.
and
Sorry.
eventually we'll get people out, we'll empty out the hotels,
Yeah,
right, which we want to do. And then eventually we'll probably need less shelters too, but first off the bat we will begin to empty the hotels because people won't stay in shelter as long.
should the city then buy the hotel and renovate?
I think that's an idea some of the mayoral candidates have put out and make it
Mm.
permanent housing. I think that's a perfectly fine idea.
But what we really need, and especially now that we have a Democratic administration who seems to understand the problems a little better, we really need increased federal aid. We really need increased expenditures from the city, and we need to build subsidized housing, right?
Totally. We need the vouchers, right? So there's places to people to go right now, but we also need to build our way out of this. And De Blasio's first affordable housing plan, and maybe the second iteration too, had no apartments that were affordable. Folks leaving shelter.
Right.
We can't allow this to be a free market solution. Can free market help and the developers to some degree? But we have to build subsidized housing in the way we did, after the war, after World War II. We have to do it. We will not be able to address the affordable housing crisis. And when I first started doing housing work in the late 80s, if I said affordable housing, people automatically thought for really low income people.
Yeah.
Now you say affordable housing and people don't know if you're talking about homeless or middle class.
No, they think you're talking about middle class, I think.
Right. And that's how big, the kind of mythical firefighter teacher family, they actually can't find an apartment anymore in the city. So we do need to seize the opportunity of the Biden administration and build more housing, as well as getting federal money to fix NYCHA.
It seems to me that your political background and governmental experience has been a big help in how you see this picture.
It has, and it was interesting to me when I got to Win, because you have a lot of like social worker types working at social service agencies, and it's easy to get re-victimized. So, when I first started there, I was like, well, and we say rented an apartment for scattered site and the landlord wasn't keeping it up to snuff. I would say, well, call HPD, call code enforcement. And that had not dawned on people. And now at Win, we have, people calling code enforcement all the time on bad landlords, because you have to add a sensibility that we're the caseworkers and the social workers, but we're also the advocates. And it's been so gratifying to see the staff really glom onto that.
And did you do registration of voters so that their voices are heard, right?
Yep, we did voter registration at all of our shelters, as well as census registration.
Yeah, that's so great. And is there an alliance now of providers?
There is. It's called HSU, Homeless Services United. A woman named Catherine runs it. She does a very good job, and it both functions as a trade association, as it should, and as an advocacy group.
Yeah, and you're really fast. I think it seems to me that you're the major advocate with the city government.
For families, when, we see ourselves as that, we want to be that, because being the largest, we house 10% of all the families. What we see is statistically significant, but the little groups can't do it. They can't do it. So we should do it.
How many children are not going to school, and how many children are having to travel far, and what's happening to homeless children?
We had, most of our moms wanted to do in-person schooling, but most of them, the vast majority, opted in, when school was starting, for the hybrid model, because they were so nervous about whether things would be safe. The Zoom school, I think, has been, terrible for everybody, but it's been particularly difficult for homeless families. So our families are as anxious, if not more anxious than anybody else, to get back into the classroom. Distance, we really leave it up to the family. Do you want to move school? Unless it's a domestic violence situation and they have to move schools. But we had a family once, for example, in East Harlem, and the boy was in a magnet school in Coney Island, where they were from. And mom took him every day to Coney Island. She worked in the Dunkin' Donuts, could only get limited hours, because then she brought him back. And that story we used when we were going through the approval process with the community for a shelter in Coney Island. Because we said, this woman came from Coney Island. If she could have stayed here, they could have gotten out of shelter more quickly. So it's really it's a family by family decision.
And you have how many shelters? You have a lot of shelters.
We have 11, and over the next 11, we opened one, the 11th, during COVID, and we have 2 more that we're opening in the next 6 months.
And how do you find it? How do you build them?
It's a really not great model, in my opinion, where developers build them and then the city rents them, and the developers make a really good amount of money on the rent that they get. And then we get the social service, maintenance, and security contracts to provide those services in the building. We think there should be a loan fund for nonprofits so we could build the buildings.
Definitely. So do they consult with you when they're designing a building?
They do. They absolutely do, because we work with them on siting and whatever, but they're trying to squeeze every space they can to make it another unit, another bedroom, because they don't get money for the computer room. They don't get money for the counseling room. So it's a big fight, and we never get the space we really need.
Right. Are there any men that are heads of households that are living in your shelter?
Yeah, there are. Not a lot. It's a small percentage, and some who are heads of households. It's a small percentage, like 3 or 4%. But some families come with a second adult. So that does happen. 92% of our families are headed by single women.
Yeah. When a family graduates out, do you have a record of how they then don't become homeless again?
So it's so bad how the city keeps its records. We do literally a hand tabulation every year, right? Can you imagine? So last year, 91% of the families who had left the year before were still in their permanent housing and had not returned to shelter, which is a number I'm very, very proud of. Now, I think the city could have numbers even higher than that and have every provider be in the 90s if they would provide aftercare. I mean, why don't we have social workers who are going and checking on people, helping them with the bills, helping them with the middle school, registration, or whatever it is that's getting them off track?
Right. It's so, you're running a large corporation. What's the size of your budget?
$124 million.
That-
And we
that-
have about close to 600 employees. So I spend a lot of time on like human resources stuff too, of which, as you can imagine, I have very little interest.
Well, you're pretty intuitive, so that's pretty good. So anyway,
you.
Chris, thank goodness that you're in this field.
Thank you.
And I'm very impressed, but I'm very dismayed at what the city process is.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. So lots and lots of good luck. And
Thanks, Ronnie. So
this
good to see
wonderful
you.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Bye.